My sister recently bought a new car and the dealer offered her a terrible trade-in for her old one, so she decided it might be best to sell it privately, which is where she then came and asked me how to do it. So here it is, step by step. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reece, and in today's video, I'm going to be explaining how to sell a car specifically within Australia, but a lot of the rules that I talk about today will apply to anyone trying to sell a car secondhand. And hopefully I'm going to provide a bit of information that will help you maximize the amount of money you can get for that car. But first, I just want to mention why you should avoid trading in your car to a dealership if you are planning on buying brand new. Long story short, they're going to offer you way less than market value, which means that you are going to lose out while they mark up the price of your old car and make a fat profit on it. In most circumstances, it's going to be more financially beneficial for you to sell your own car privately. And with that out of the way, we can get right into it. There are only a few main steps that you need to follow to get this deal done. Step one is to get a realistic valuation for what the car might be worth. And lots of people, I see this often online, people suggest going and actually speaking to a dealer to see what they would offer you, and also potentially buying a valuation report, which costs you a bit of money up front. And I want to make it very clear that in most circumstances for your everyday drive secondhand car, I would highly recommend avoiding purchasing one of these reports. And that's because the information that you'll be looking for will be available for free on a number of online car sales websites. Two very quick examples would include Redbook and Car Sales that I myself have personally used, and others I know have also used to sell their cars in the past. By simply searching on one of these websites for the make and model of the car that you're trying to sell, you will gain access to lots of different listings, which should hopefully guide you in the right direction or give you some confidence in your ability to come up with a value for the car that you're trying to sell without having to do anything else. This should give you enough to get you that starting number of what you're thinking about selling your car for. And just as a side note, try to find similar listings which match the condition of your car. One very simple example of the way to filter through this search would be try to find cars with a similar number of kilometers or miles on it, depending on where you're looking in the world. But that's just one example of the criteria you could put in to try and find an even closer match to the car you're trying to sell. Now, moving on to step two, which is probably one of the most important, and that is to make your car look as presentable as possible. This means you either scrub it clean or you pay someone to professionally clean it, and you try and find a reputable detailer who can do that for you. Now, this might cost you around about $100, but it will make a huge difference, and it will definitely help your car stand out when it's listed amongst many other cars online. And if you were planning to clean it yourself, I would highly recommend that you watch some content, consume some content of people who deep clean their cars online. One very good example is the Detail Geek. He cleans areas of cars that even I myself learned about by watching him. And now when I clean my car, I make sure to do the areas that I once didn't actually think of doing, and they definitely get dirty, and it will make a difference. And it won't take you all that much time to A, learn where these areas are, and then B, add them to your cleaning plan if you are someone who's planning to clean your car before selling. Moving on now, the importance of getting step three right is up there with step two, which is to take photos of your car, focusing on two things in particular. Number one is to make sure to make them stand out. That's pretty obvious. But number two is to make sure that you take photos of everything, especially things that are really important that often get forgotten. A good example of this would be to take a photo of your logbook and your spare key when you're photographing the entire car. It's one thing that often gets left out, but it's one nice additional thing to add to the ad that you're going to be posting. And I truly cannot stress this one enough. I do this for everything that I sell online, whether it be because I'm trying to flip it for a profit or because I want to make sure that it sells quickly at the price that I'm trying to get. I put a lot of effort into the photos I take for anything that I sell because a good set of photos will stand out on a grid of a lot of mediocre listings. And also, when you provide a lot of information to potential buyers, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it for them. So while they're doing their investigating, it means that they have to do a hell of a lot less work to be convinced that what they're buying is something that is well worth buying and it's a good purchase for them. I suggest looking at other listings online and copying what they've posted at the bare minimum. A lot of the common photos contained within those listings will often be grouped almost in every single listing that you look at, meaning they're definitely the photos at a bare minimum you need to take. I would also suggest taking the car to get photos done somewhere where there is a somewhat pretty background. A good example here in Australia would be a Hungry Jack's car park, where they have beautiful hedges in their car parks and generally they're not overly full. So you should be able to get a car in there to quickly snap some shots. If this isn't really an option for you, then potentially take it to somewhere where there's not a lot going on in the background, somewhere like an oval, and just quickly park it there, take the photos you need, and then obviously go home. It's pretty straightforward to do this, but it's something that I think, again, if it stands out, it will make a difference. And finally, for this step, if you know anyone who is a photographer that you might be close with and could ask them to potentially come and help you, this also could help with the quality of the photos that you take. In a lot of circumstances, if you know someone and they're willing to help, it would be great, especially if you're someone who's not overly confident in your ability to take quality photos. Okay, step 4. This is where we're going to put it all together and post your ad. Basically, there are a number of different options you can go down to advertise where this car is potentially going to be seen from people who might be potential buyers. However, there is one non-negotiable, and that is that you definitely need to post an ad on at least one reputable car sales website. And like I mentioned earlier, the two that I have personally used in the past is Car Sales and Redbook, but there are many other options. Doing this will generally come with some type of fee. However, it is absolutely worth it because it's where the eyes are going to be. Whenever someone in this country is planning to buy a second-hand car, they are definitely browsing these websites, and this is where your listing is probably going to be seen a hell of a lot more than if you were to advertise locally, which I'll touch more on in a moment. The other place that would definitely be worth considering posting your ad would be any type of website that offers free listings. Here in Australia, that would be Gumtree and Marketplace, just to name two off the top of my head. Definitely websites where a lot of views will definitely come through in the early days of your ad being posted, and it can really boost up your opportunity of finding a potential buyer, and it's free to do it. Now let's talk about what you should be listing the car for. Regardless of what you've found as part of your research, depending on the quality of your car as well, if everything is in check, you've taken the good photos, you've cleaned it up real nice, I would be considering adding anywhere between $400 to $1,000 of what all of the other cars listed on these websites are currently going for. Because again, if you've got a really good ad that stands out, I would always start higher. And then obviously if you aren't able to sell the car in a short period of time, let's say somewhere around 2 weeks, I would then reevaluate the price that you have it listed at. The main point here is to avoid selling yourself short. Unless you're in a rush to sell the car, go high to begin with. Now, taking it back to what I was saying before about providing information to potential buyers. This is an opportunity when you're creating your ad to ease the concerns that potential buyers might have by just giving as much context as possible for what is going on with this car. It's so simple as well, because on a lot of these ads and listings, they will offer lots of different fields to provide this context. Just keep in mind that some mandatory areas or fields will be required, such as the make, the model, what the body type is, the transmission, the year the car was built, an overview of its condition, how far it might have traveled, the engine size, any additional accessories, the registration expiry date, or tell them if it's unregistered. Give them your contact information, and most importantly, what your asking price is. Now that covers how to list it online. There are other ways as well that you can go about advertising your car for sale. One that comes to mind is a bit old-fashioned, but it's still very commonplace today for people to do this. Go and take your car, park it on a main road that lots of eyes are going to be passing it. It's very common, used all the time, and all you really need to do is zinc up your window with your phone number, a big for sale sign, and how much you're wanting to get for it. I would suggest though that you leave your car there during peak hours only and don't leave it there overnight, because of course you don't want it to get broken into or damaged in any way. Moving on already to step 5, which is to not cave when people start inquiring about the car. Make sure that you have a number in your mind that you're willing to let the car go for, which is kind of your bare minimum, and then expect people to start negotiating as they start to ask about the potential to buy this car. This can absolutely at times be confrontational. Just understand that this potential buyer is probably coming into this discussion or this negotiation with the intent to get the best deal possible for them. Generally, that's as far as it's going to go. They are trying to get the best deal for them, and that's why they are trying to haggle with you. Step 6 now. This is the time to get all of your ancillary prep work complete. Make sure you have all of the paperwork on hand, or at least understand the process. And the simplest way to figure this out is to go to Google and literally type in selling a car, motor registration, and go to the government website for your applicable state. I live in South Australia, so this is the website that I'm going to be using for the example in today's video. This is the website that will explain the paperwork involved with transferring a car into someone else's name, and it will also detail the process. One important thing to note is that providing a buyer with registration details is not proof of sale. You will need to provide them with a receipt once, and I'm going to say this very clearly, once they have paid in full for the vehicle. And this receipt should include the following at least. It should have your name, your address, and your signature. It should have the buyer's name, their address, and their signature. It should have vehicle details such as the registration number, the vehicle identification number, which is known as a VIN, the engine number, the make and model, and details of the sale, including the date and the price that was paid. There are lots of templates online that you can download as a PDF for free and print it off to fill it out. Keep a signed copy for yourself and provide one to the buyer after the sale has been completed. You should absolutely be providing the new owner with any relevant documentation to that car, such as the warranty, any recall history, any finance on the car, any types of service history, accessories, and potentially a spare key. One very good recent example would be Takata airbags associated with Japanese cars. They have been recalled in the masses. My own car as well actually went through this recall process. So I would be providing that evidence of that recall being completed to any potential buyer that was going to buy my car. If you're somewhere that that car is listed on a toll account, make sure that you remove it from that toll account as well, because you don't want to be getting charged for someone else driving through a toll zone and your account still being registered to it. And finally, for this step, I know it might sound kind of silly, but if you've been driving your car while it's been up for sale, you might have forgotten to potentially take out some personal belongings from the car. So make sure you do that. Make sure you take everything that is yours, that isn't kind of fixed to the car or the floor mats, take that out of the car so at least you don't leave it behind when you say goodbye to your old vehicle. So here we are at step 7. It is time to seal the deal. Once you have found a buyer and they are ready to make a payment, you want to make sure that you have everything in check. Do not let the buyer take the car until they have paid in full, and do not accept a personal check as they can potentially bounce. This is really important. Do not accept a personal check no matter what you do. The more solid ways to accept payment is through either a bank issued check or through direct transfer, which is something like Osco, or the old fashioned way known as cash. And then once that money hits the account, congratulate your buyer, make sure you provide them with a receipt of sale and let them be on their way. Now, once that car is gone, regardless of if you've disposed of it or you've sold it, there is something else you need to do depending on what state you live in within Australia in particular, and that is to lodge a disposal notice as soon as possible. Doing this is really important. It will notify the state that you are no longer the current owner of the vehicle. It will authorize the transfer of the remaining registration to the new owner, and most importantly, it will help you avoid being held responsible for the new owner's parking or driving offenses should they drive through a speed camera and it still be linked to your address, account, ownership, whatever you want to name it. Now, just as a quick reminder, this is an overview of the steps involved and how to go about the overall process of selling a car. Just keep in mind that each state may have additional steps that need to be taken for a sale to legally go through. I highly encourage that you go to your local state's driving and transport information website to make sure you understand any additional steps that may be required, like I said, for the sale to legally be processed. And that is just about it. Hopefully what I have covered in today's video has given you some potential confidence to go out and actually sell your car privately if you've come to this video looking for that guide. And I've also linked some things in the description down below that I would count as being helpful resources that I've kind of talked throughout of today's video. Feel free to go and give them a look if they are things that are relevant to where you live and what you're planning to be doing with the car that you might be planning on selling. And from here, all I can truly say is all the best with the sale of your secondhand car. If you found today's video insightful and you made it this far, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button down below. It really does wonders for the growth of the channel, and the support definitely doesn't go unnoticed. I'm going to leave you there. So have a good day, have a good week, and like I said, hopefully you get super rich from selling your secondhand car. Bye for now.